Namo Sakyamuni Buddha, Namo Sakyamuni Buddha, Namo Sakyamuni Buddha.
Thank you. All right, let us continue. Let's see here. Yeah. Before we move on, I think the concept of the emptiness as we discussed last time is pretty challenging for us in this modern age. Um, so even for us, we decide the whole sutra every day to remind ourselves that we should recognize those things to let go of them, but it takes time to do the practice. Okay, go ahead, Thân Thiên. We start here in this way, please.
Yamapataya. In this way, Tasyapa, the law preached by the Buddha, is comparable to a great cloud, which with a single flavor rain moisten human flowers so that each is able to bear fruit. Kasyapa, you should understand that through various causes and conditions, various kinds of simile and parable are opened and revealed the Buddha way. This is an expedient means I employ, and the same is true of the other Buddhas. Now for you and the others I preach the utmost truth. None is the multitude of voice here has entered the stage of ascension. What you are practicing is the bodhisattva way, and you gradually advance in practice and learning. You are all certain to attain Buddhahood. Um, what the Buddha is saying is that the law that the Buddha preached is similar to the great cloud, which rain down that all the trees, plants, flowers, they are all receive the moisture. Um, so um, and he should let us know that he teach these people through the various causes and conditions, various kind of semi-imparable. This is the way that he opened up and revealed the Buddha way. This is this is what he has been done the same way as the other past Buddhas. And what he say is the voice hearer, the one that think they enter the stage of ascension, but actually they do not enter the stage of ascension. Um, so what he say he should practice the Bodhisattva way in order to learn all the things that he should be learned, so that he can attain the Buddhahood. Okay, yeah, yeah, this is what I learned.
Thank you. So again, the Buddha just mentioned that he used various means to teach us according to our potential and our needs. But ultimately, he wants us to follow the Bodhisattva path to attain Buddhahood like him. Mm. some people they may think that Buddhism's like psychology. Some people let's say Buddhism like philosophy. Uh, some people they say that Buddhism is the way of life. So, William, how could we explain to them? How could we define uh,
Hmm.
Buddhism?
Yeah, I it seems that it would be different for different people.
Yeah,
So someone who is Christian, who is not going to, um, you know, be readily interested in hearing all of the great details of Buddhism, well, maybe to them, Buddhism is a means to be exposed to meditation and to learn how to allow greater peace in their life. But then someone who is, really interested in going through Buddhism entirely and learning all they can, well, I would say it certainly would then become a way of life, and it's all encompassing. It's the teachings of the Buddha are meant to open up our awareness so that we can see, we can kind of illuminate the areas where we have ignorance, and we can free ourselves from the repetitive problems that we run into. So yeah, I think all of the above. It can be seen as a philosophy, or it can be seen as just a way to learn meditation, but also a very like profound and transformative study that affects all aspects of life.
Thông Nguyễn, let's say someone approached you and asked you, can you summarize what's Buddhism about? What do you think?
Yeah, thưa thầy, yeah, coincidentally, I think on last Sunday in the yoga class, people asked me to, ask there is the question, what is the Dharma? And then I remember, I think it was Santideva or the name of the Tibetan monk saying, it's like since we are still here in the world, in the samsara, we still have, we will be reincarnated back. And the teaching of the Buddha or the Dharma is help to protecting us like a shoe that protect our feet walking on the very difficult path. Wherever people choose any tools that fixed for them, is their dharma. As long as they are safe, they are happy, they are keep doing the good things for themselves and for the other, they need the dharma. It's what I understand today.
Miss Thân Tự, what do you think? If someone approached you and asked, could you summarize what's Buddhism about? What do you think?
Yes, so a lot of time when people ask me about Buddhism, most of the time I go, I know for us some is a religion, but a lot of people it's more of a philosophy. And so, and I try to talk to them that I learned based on the not only the precept but the Eight Noble Truth, and basically living a life where you don't have any attachment. And how do you deal with day-to-day life situation where you don't feel the stress. And I also talk about meditation. I think meditation is part of something that is very core value of Buddhism. So some of those that I bring up, but a lot of time is even with my husband, which he's a different religion, and sometimes I said it might be useful for you to sit in my class just to learn the basic concept of how to understand and manage when you're under stress or when you're in a situation where you feel you're out of control. How do you manage things like that? So I don't necessarily say I don't really approach a lot on religion, because religion is based on each individual belief. But if I want to help others, I have to state the facts of what I have learned. And that is how I would approach.
Thank you. Miss Tung Yu, what do you think?
For me, I can only apply it to myself as to how I started with it until presently. And I think Buddhism is what you want to take from it. I can make a metaphor of a person who is hungry or not hungry. When you need to grasp on something and you are at a point where you want to learn as much as you can versus, so that's comparable to somebody who's extremely hungry. They want to take a big bite, as much of the food as they can, or they are just snacking. So for the majority of us, or for myself anyways, when I first started, it was just, oh, it's interesting. I was taught this from my aunts, from my grandmother, from my family. So, okay, this is part of our culture. This is part of our heritage. So we will learn from it. And it was just one of those things that we just do. Then as you get older and you maybe out of circumstance, you want to have a certain faith. Maybe there are situations in your life where you feel you need to rely on your faith a little bit more. Then you grasp on to it like a life preserver. So you want to know more about it. How can I learn more, either to improve my circumstance or to understand my circumstance? But then as you get older and older, and definitely it's within our blessing, who we meet, what we were taught when we met those people, what did they expose us to, and how was that exposure that brings us either to wanting to learn more or totally lose the interest in altogether. So that is part of our karmic blessing, or the negatives of our karma. And it happens to be for myself. I grew up in a family that exposed me to Buddhism. I met teachers, Yutei, that have taught us things that that helped me propel myself forward as opposed to going backwards. I know that in the beginning, almost 19, 20 years ago, when we first started, our classes are more on a monthly basis. And at that point in time, we learned, little by little. Now, circumstance happens that we are learning on a weekly basis, and we take on more knowledge. So for the people who want to get started, it can be a philosophy. They can take it as a religion if that's what they happen to choose. If it is their daily life that they rely on, whether it be meditation, whether it be recitation, whether it be reading the sutras, it's really very personal, whatever you want to make of it. For my own personal practice, it has increased. what is the motivation behind that? It could be a combination of my perspective in life, where I feel I do need more of a spiritual guidance, where I can, or it could be, now on a personal level, perhaps this is all I can do to help my family, is to learn and to read the sutra and to recite the Buddha names, and then transfer the merits to the people that I care about, to the people who in the world, as we are going through difficult times with the pandemic. So I think Buddhism is what you take out of it, depending on what your hunger state is. You can take very little bites, or your interest can be much bigger, and then you can take bigger bites, and then you apply it to your daily life, depending on the circumstance that you are in.
Thank you. Thanks for your sharing. Okay, so let's see here. Let's move on chapter 6 then. But before we move on chapter 6, Mr. Thang Yu, would you mind to summarize what we learned about chapter 5? Is that okay?
Yes, the main gist I received, I learned from chapter 5, is the Buddha is saying that he is like a big cloud that nourishes all the, just as a large cloud nourishes the big trees, the little trees, the weeds, the plants, the grass, the herbs, and just like the big cloud to those vegetation, he also nourishes us by the teaching of the Dharma. But what the vegetation receives from a big cloud is dependent upon the capacity or the potential of each of those plants, even though the, he proceeds to give it out very freely. He does not discriminate between each person. The Dharma is taught in one swoop with no discrimination, but it is reliant upon our capacity karmically as to how we receive the Dharma.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I'd like to ask is that sometimes when they walk on the street, and especially some young men approach to me and ask whether I know Kung Fu or not. And some of my students, they mentioned about that question too, but most of the time they really surprised, because as a monk, I could be able to teach in university, and especially the students who live in Houston, they have more opportunities and exposure to the Buddhist traditions, because in Houston there's many Buddhist centers, and some of them just come along with their friends to attend, let's say, New Year celebration at certain temples, or some of them even the Vietnamese young people. When they come to temple, most of the time they come because of the New Year. They want to. I don't know whether William, you know that fortune stick. They shake the bottles until one stick fall down, so that they can read that fortune stick. And that's just one. It's really funny. One story is that one lady, she lived in Tulsa, Oklahoma. She's one of uh, mm, the followers that used to go to that temple frequently. And in the New Year's, what? Guess what? So they just put all the parcel of the good stick for the people to pick up, and that's they love that. They love that when they come to temple, they can have that type of fortune stick to foresee the future in a positive way. That's what they want to. And I think it is still prevalent even in Vietnam too. Many of them they claim themselves as Buddhists, but they don't know much about Buddhism until they study. So again, that's fine too. So it takes times. Oh, one more story I want to show you or share with you. It just happened last couple of days. Um, this one lady, she's in the midst, in the late 60s, she's passed away. Her family came from southern New Jersey, and her daughter somehow, it's a long story, but I want to make short. Stop at our temple in Louisville, Kentucky, and she requires me to do the funeral service for her mothers. The one just passed away uh, last few days, and today I did it for her. But the interesting thing is that for this lady, she said that the first 18 years she loved to go to the temple, but the next 18 years she loved to go to the Catholic Church
Hmm.
because she told me some story about her spiritual life. And now she said, "Oh, this is time for me to come back to study more about Buddhism." So that's the karma, that's the connection, that's what each person has different way of life, different potential, different needs, different spiritual needs, and so forth. Anyway, so I'd like to share with you this story. All right, let's move on then. Yeah, Miss Thang Như, would you like to read this?
Yes, Tay. At that time, the world honored one, having finished reciting these verses, made an announcement to the great assembly, speaking in these words: This disciple of mine, Mahakasyapa, in future existences will be able to enter the presence of 3,000 billion Buddhas, world honored ones, to offer alms, pay reverence, honor, and praise them, widely proclaiming the innumerable great doctrines of the Buddhas. And in his final incarnation, he will be able to become a Buddha named Light Bright, thus come one, worthy of offerings of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone understanding the world, unexcelled worthy, trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world honored one. His land will be called light virtue, and his kalpa will be called great adornment. The lifespan of this Buddha will be 12 small kalpas. His correct law will endure in the world for 20 small kalpas, and his counterfeit law for 20 small kalpas. So the Buddha is giving a prediction for Mahakasyapa of his future Buddhahood. He is saying that in the future he will become a Buddha. He will be in the presence of other Buddhas. He will be able to honor and pay respect to many Buddhas, and that is his honor and his benefit. And he will become a Buddha named Light Bright, thus come one. And he will be basically a Tathagata, just like many of the other Buddhas. In his existence, as this Buddha will be 12 small kalpas. His dharma will last in the world for 12 small kalpas, and the counterfeit law will also be for 20 small kalpas. And I have a question regarding correct law versus counterfeit law.
Yeah. So what do you know about that?
I don't know much about that. I can only guess because there are references in these. And I assume that his correct law must be during a time where there are more, such that there's no dharma decay. And the counterfeit law is during a time where there is a deterioration in where the dharma exists and in the beliefs of the Dharma.
Yeah, that's the way, depend upon each Buddha. For example, our second Buddhas, so actually we call proper Dharma periods. That means when people could understand the Buddhism in the proper way, and it lasts for 1,000 years. And the next one is what you call not the counterfeit. I don't know. This is the way they translate. But usually we use the word the similar proper law or proper dharma, similar proper dharma. This is not a 1,000 years. And after that, it's called the deteriorating dharma periods. That means not many people understand Buddhism, not talking about practicing it. So that's the way that some, especially Chinese Buddhist monks in the past, um, divide the time frames for Buddhism. Does that make sense, Ms. Thang Như?
So does that mean that it's broken up into three periods, or?
Kind of. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
In general, kind of. Yeah, three. The first one is, you can say, instead of saying correct law, we can say proper Dharma periods. That means people can understand Buddhism in proper way, in correct way. And then the next periods is called the similar proper Dharma periods. It's another 1,000 according to uh, um, the periods of second Buddhas. And after that, that's belong to the deterioration periods of Dharma.
Yes, thank you, Thầy.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, Thân Nguyễn, please.
Yes, Thầy. His dream will be monastically adorned, free of defilements or evil, shards or rubles, thorns or briars, or unclean refuse of latrines. The land will be level and smooth, without high places or sharks, pits or claws. The ground will be of lapis lazuli, with rows of yellow trees and drops of gold to mark the boundaries of the roads. Yellow flowers will be scattered around, and everywhere will be pure and clean. The Bodhisattva of that dream will number countless thousands of millions, and the multitude of voices here will likewise be innumerable. There will be no workings of the devil, and although the devil and the devil's people will be there, they will protect the law of the Buddha. So in here, the Lotus Sutra describe how the word of the Buddha, the light Buddha, the land where the Buddhas theirs will be, and it will be perfect with no it will be pure and clean everywhere, and also there will be no devil or negative thoughts beings.
So we used to decide the Pure Land Sutra of Amitabha Buddha. So what do you think? So those Pure Lands exist, or you may not know for sure. I mean that in your faith, you believe that there's some pure land there, or it's just the vision of the Buddha? Is that beyond our thinking? What do you think?
I think the land, the pure land is there today.
Yeah, if someone asks you that, can you prove for that? Can you explain in reasonable way, in logical way? How can you do that then?
In logical way, for example, I born in the family that my father never believed that a daughter can do anything good.
Hmm.
He never believed that until now. So somehow my grandfather just passed away, yeah, about 2 months ago. Still, he does not believe that we live in now in the Netherlands and my young sister live in Sweden. We have very good environment to live, and here people having no discrimination in genders. Still, my father, yeah, even he erased the name of my mom in yeah, everywhere. And yeah, my grandfather was actually very sad of that, because until at the last moment of my grandfather, he still cannot convince to my father that at least my grandfather is also very traditional Vietnamese, but somehow at a certain point, he opened mind for new ideas. There are countries and there are mindset that does not have this, but my father is still like this. So again, if I could explain to him that it's what a pity that you have very nice 3 daughters and they are so good and you don't trust them and you don't even, yeah, we cannot do anything good for him. So the same thing, if someone saying, okay, if it's hard to explain to someone who does not believe, because I do think that there are people even in difficult time when they believe in good and they do good things, the cause effect will send them to a better place. So I believe that there are much better place than this place. I don't know where the Pure Land of the Buddha is. I know it only from the Buddhist scripture, but I do think that there are more higher beings and there are countless of Buddha all around us, just because there are, yeah, we're having delusion in the mind from too many reincarnation before, life before, then we come to this situation. But there are perfect words like the Pure Lands of the Buddha. Like,
Yeah, thank you. William, I see your background there, the Buddha. You know the
Mhm.
background story of that
Yes,
backgrounds?
yes. Isn't it when the Buddha is descending from Tusi to heaven? And then
Not
it's
to
all the
Sita, not to
devotees
Sita,
rising?
but the other heaven. It's called the 32 heavens, where he taught
Oh,
his
okay.
mother. According to Mahayana tradition, he went up there to teach his mothers or repay his mother kindness, because after 7 days he was born, his mother passed away and was born as a celestial being over there. And in both
Mm.
tradition, Mahayana and Theravada traditions recognize us. He flew up there to teach the gods, especially his mothers. In the Theravada traditions, it's mentioned that when the Buddha went up there, or flew up there, he taught Abhidhamma, or the commentaries of his teaching. But in the Mahayana Sutra or traditions, mentioned that Buddha went up there to teach his mothers, uh, especially the Sutra of Earth Bodhisattva Sutra. You heard about that?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's why. But my question is that when you hear all have this miracles happen to Buddha, and plus we talk about Pure Land. So at first, right, when you first study Buddhism, how was your direction? How was your understanding then?
Uh,
Acceptance.
my first introduction to Buddhism was through a book on Zen.
Mm.
And Zen doesn't really involve itself with those stories very much.
Mm.
So whenever, as I was exposed to the Vietnamese temple here, even then everything was in Vietnamese. So I didn't really hear anything about these more miraculous things other than the Pure Land. I did learn about the Pure Land from them. And then I began reading more texts. And the first time I read the Lotus Sutra, I just didn't know what to do with it because there were all of these amazing things happening. And it was like, my mind, I have a skeptical, I'm just kind of naturally skeptical. And I really wanted to believe everything I read, but I had trouble harmonizing it with also being skeptical. But after some years and having more experience and coming back to these works, it's like there's in Zen, it's the direct awareness in the moment without thought. But then these other teachings are like, they're kind of like ropes or guidelines, or they are systems of thought that anticipate how our mind works and what we want and what our desires are. And so they feel like this beautiful gift that if I say I put aside the idea of whether or not these things are factually true, and I look at, if I believe these things, what does it give me? Like, what will it do for my life and the people's life around me? And the end result is positive. It motivates good behavior, and it puts the mind at ease. So I think that's another way to sidestep the idea of, can it be proven or not? From my standpoint now, how I look at it is, people widely accept the existence of hell and the existence of heaven, like you alluded to, and they widely accept that people go to those places based upon their behavior. So like people who do similar things, they get grouped together. And if we believe that, if someone has already said, okay, I believe that the Buddha was real and realized these truths and taught these things, that's a phenomenal being that was able to pierce through ignorance and make such a tremendous difference in the world. And to think that they would have some ability of creating a land and then attracting certain people to that land who had similar, who had the right mind state, it doesn't seem like that big of a leap compared to like believing in heaven or believing in hell, or even believing in the existence of the Buddha. So I do think, yeah, I think that the Pure Land exists, and that these other kind of realms of consciousness and karma exist.
Thank you. Thầy Giáo Pháp, can you explain with the Pure Land, impure land exists from the mind? How we view things?
Okay. Yeah, everything comes from the mind. That's correct. Even whatever we see in our daily life, it's come from the mind, and as well as the concept of the Pure Land. So, how do we put in this way? So there's a story that the Zen master and his friend. Um, but his friend is not is a ordinary person, but he's very smart and he a poet, and he always want to debate with the Zen master. So one day he wrote the poem. No, I mean no, he came to the Zen master and he had. Uh, uh, how I look, how I look, and the Zen master said, "You look like the Buddha." Okay, and the Zen master asked him, "How about me? How I look?" You know what? This poet he used a very dirty word to describe the Zen master. So basically, and he happy that he thought that he be able to win the Zen master. So he went back to and he said to with his sister that you know what, today I be able to win the debate with the Zen master. And he told the sister about the debate between the two. And the sister said that, no, you lose already. Because your mind is that have, you have all those evil thoughts from your mind. And therefore you describe the Zen master in the way of the evil, in a dirty way. But the Zen master always pure, he have a pure mind and he have a Buddha mind. Therefore, whatever he see is that Buddha. So pure or not pure, it comes from the mind. Even the pure land. So,
Thank you, Thầy Giáo Pháp. Yeah, Mr. Thân Tư, please.
At that time, the World Honored One, wishing to state his meaning once more, spoke in verse form, saying, I announce to this monks, when I employ the Buddha eye to observe Kaishyapa here, I see that in a future existence, after innumerable kalpas have passed, he will be able to attain Buddhahood. In future existence, he will offer alms and enter present of 3,000 billions Buddha, World Honored One. For the sake of the Buddha wisdom, he will carry out Brahma practices meticulously and will offer alms to the unexcelled one, the most honored of two-legged beings. After he has done so, he has practiced all the unsurpassed types of wisdom. In his final incarnation, he will be able to become a Buddha. His land will be pure and clean, the ground of lapis lazuli. Many jewels trees will line the roadside with golden ropes to mark the roads, and those who see it will rejoice. It will constantly emit a pleasing fragrance with heaps of rare flowers scattered around and many kinds of strange and wonderful things for its adornment. So basically, with the monk, they said that if you have a Buddha eye to observe, then for your future existence, you will be able to attain Buddhahood. And so with those existence, you will be able to see the presence of 3,000 billion Buddhas. And for the sake of the Buddha's wisdom, you will carry out Brahma practices where you will excel. And I'm not sure about what does it mean by the most honor of two-legged beings. I don't understand that part. But anyways, what it is that when you are able to become Buddha, you will be able to see things in the land that is pure and clean. You will be able to see jewels, trees, and roadsides and golden robes. And you will be able to be happy and rejoice. You will also be seeing pleasing fragrance and flowers that scatter all around, and you will see wonderful things. So I always wonder this, Tay, is that, you know, in Buddhism, we are very simple, right? From what we know is, you know, we don't think about, you know, clothes or jewels or things like that. However, when this type of analogy, I feel like the analogy that is giving as an example here is always about gold or flowers, something that's lavish. So in a way, for me, I felt it's like a contradictory, where, I mean, as a person, let's just say that we want to, you know, we want good things, right? Then we say, oh wow, you know, we become in Buddha land, we get all these wonderful things that's given to us. However, if you look at how Buddhism and how we are, is we have a simple life. Things are simple. So how is that analogy, you know, coincide?
Wow, that's a great question. Mm. Anyone like to respond? This be a good question. Yeah. Mm.
I did want to respond to the most honored of two-legged beings.
Yeah, please.
It two-legged, that just means like any beings that are walking on two legs. So like humans for us here. And so he's just, that's another word for the Buddha, like the thus come one or the Tathagata or the you know, the Dharma King, but the most honored of two-legged beings, another word for it.
How
Thank
about
you.
how about her question? What do you think? Why the Buddha explained all have this lavish scenes in the Buddha land instead of happiness, a simple lives. That's what we have. That's what we work on.
Well, I know the seven jewels, they stand for different virtues,
Mm.
and the presence of those jewels in a land are meant to be representative of the collective karma and consciousness of the people in that land.
Mm.
And I wonder about it, the symbolism, because for us to understand that land, I wonder, like, okay, well, maybe it's not even jewels, but maybe the Buddha saying it's these jewels gives us an impression that is close to what it's like. Because if we think of a land like that, it's very amazing and it's very awesome. But like, I don't know, if all the ground was lapis lazuli everywhere, that'd be really hard. And if you like tripped and fell, that would hurt a lot more than if the ground was soft. So I kind of think that it's a way to have us kind of understand how marvelous and beautiful this world is, and be symbolic of the virtues of the people living there. And it does seem that in the Lotus Sutra, they praise bodhisattvas giving all of these things to the Buddha way,
Mm.
all of these different precious substances, but they're usually alluded to with respect to giving them away as an offering or being present in such abundance in these Buddha lands. We're never like encouraged to seek after these things, or you know, to try to attain them just for ourselves. So I think it does avoid contradiction, but I know that feeling of what you're talking about, of it feeling kind of like, yeah, why is all this effort, this focus on jewels and stuff? Like they're empty, they don't really even matter, but maybe symbolic.
Mm. How are you, Tang Thieng? What do you think? Is there any contradiction about the Buddha say that we need to live in simple life, but he provide, especially in Mahaya Pure Land tradition, he say that wow, you just decide Amitabha Buddha names, you go there, you enjoy the lavish life of there, whichever thing you wish you will have. Yeah, you work on the land of bliss. Everything's uh, is so pure and so lavish. They have gold, jewel, and so forth. Is there any contradiction with that kind of teaching? Anything? What do you think?
Yeah, more to say. I think the way that seven jewel appear in his land because I think because of the vows that he made that appear in his land. And so I think the way that we had to practice in a simple way in order to be born in his land is because the land that we are living in is only like a short lifetime, and we try our best not to attach to those type of materials, and we should practice and try our best to attend the way so that we can be born in his land so that we have more um, lifespan. Um, so that so once we get to the point we can come back to the unpure land to practice the way and continue practice until we attain the Buddha way. And so once we get there, and we will have our own pure land so that we can have the true happiness. That's what I understand.
Nguyen, what do you think? Is there any contradiction?
Thưa thầy, I think Bhutan is like Disneyland for the kids. So there are kids that crying, and then the parents say, "Yeah, if you do your best, I will bring you to Disneyland in Paris." However, they have to pay for the ticket. And then I read some book saying even the people who sentient being who reach the Pure Land, they do need to learn Dharma. And just like people can enter Disneyland, but they can stay there for one day, and they have to go back home. So wherever people go to Pure Land, it's also a way of the Buddha to motivate and also to, it's not a promise, it's a describing that there is an area that is better than what we are now living in, so that people or sentient being will go to that stage, and there's easier for them to practice Dharma, and to meet good friends there, that they can grow better in Dharma. So there is no contradict, because like all of the Disney, all the cartoon that Disneyland make, even the goals and all the cartoons, animals or people in that world is not real for us, but for the kids, it's real. It's for them is real, and they are very happy when they see this movie. So that at that time when the Buddha do not have the cartoon, they write this kind of thing from imagination in the book, but it describe what the vision or the real thing that the Buddha showed them at that time. At least what I understand today.
Yeah, Miss Thung, when you read this kind of passage, what do you think? Especially Miss Thung Từ mentioned a pretty good question. What do you think then?
I think this kind of description is in multitudes of sutras. Not just this sutra, but the Amitabha Sutra and many, many other sutras. And I do believe that it is part of the Buddha's use of skillful means as to how he approaches his audience. And who are his audience now? The audience that he has are human beings, and what are the sufferings that we endure. So he is attracting to our senses. He's attracting to the things that we suffer. We suffer out of discomfort. There are people who don't have enough food. There are people who have illnesses. There are people who have pains, and he is addressing it to common people and to human beings that are still attached to this cycle, and he is addressing it so that that way he can let us know that there is an entrance to another world that can that alleviates our suffering. So in that existence, we won't have the sufferings that we have in this world. He's addressing it to our senses, our sense of vision, our sense of smell, our sense of hearing. So everything in that purity is addressed to the things that we would consider very pleasant. There's nothing toxic. So I believe that because we are beginners, that this is how the Buddha uses skillful means to encourage us to proceed and to progress with our Dharma practice.
Thank you. John, you understand anything about this, John? You believe that there's some pure lands over there that you would not have any kind of physical or mental sufferings over there? What do you think, John?
I think I kind of do believe it though.
Okay. How can you explain this tradition, like the way that Miss Thân to get asked?
You mean that why the Buddha land have all the 7 jewels?
No. One way is that in Buddhism, right, whether it's in Mahayana or the other traditions, the Buddha's always encourage us to have a simple life. But in Mahayana traditions, the Buddha explained or describes the pure lands like Amitabha Buddha, Pure Land, or this future Buddha Mahakashipa, with those type of beautiful or magnificent scenes. So is there any contradiction for that?
No, there is no contradiction for that. So basically, whatever the Buddha land that the Buddha described about the 7 jewels, it represents for the 7 jewels that every sacred one have. That means just like the 7 practice. So let me go. So the first one is called the faith. The second one we call the preset. That means the law, the rule. The third one we call the inner shame. That means when we do bad things, we feel shame to ourselves. And the fourth one is we call the outer shame before order. That means when we do bad things, we feel shame. We feel shame to order. And the fifth thing is vast learning the Dharma. The sixth thing is generosity, that means the giving. The seventh one is the wisdom. So these 7 practice, and also before they become a Buddha, they have to practice the Buddha, the Bodhisattva path. And you know what? They have to undergo countless lifetime in order to perfect the practice. So, and they make a lot of vows. So, in order to complete their vow, just like in the sutra here, the Mahakasapa, he have to make an offer to the 3,000 billion Buddha. What does that mean? It takes him countless lifetime to be able to offer and learning the Dharma from that 3,000 billion Buddha in order to perfect his Bodhisattva path, to fulfill his Bodhisattva vow. And the seven jewel, the one that I just give to you, it represents the 7 jewel in the Buddha land. And the reason for the Bodhisattva to practice like this to create the Buddha land for the sentient being. Because sentient beings always like to have a beautiful thing and to make it easy for them to go there without any suffering so they can be able to easily learn the Dharma and practice the Dharma. That's the idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm.
So let me summarize this a lot, but since time is up, so I want to summarize that again. For us, we have all kind of attachment. That's why after we pass away, after someone pass away, because of that kind of attachment, um, they bring us back to this cycle of rebirth, and even go down to the lower realm of system. Like some story that some wealthy men attached to their gold or possessions, and after they passed away, they were born as dogs to protect their possession and properties. So we don't know that we have that type of strong attachment to the material lives or secular lives. That's why he used experience mean to tell us that, "Oh, okay, don't attach to those things here. It will bring you down. Well, I have a beautiful uh, mm, Buddha land for you to go after you pass away. When you go there, you enjoy all kinds of things. You would not have any kind of suffering, physical and mental suffering. We live forever and so forth. So because of our attachment, we trust the Buddha and decide his name and practice his teachings so that we could be reborn over there. So that's one level. Another level is that yes, in the essence, whether it's in Mahayana, Theravada tradition, and so forth, the Buddha's always remind us that we need to have a simple life so that we can look within ourselves. When we have a simple life, we will not have think much about the material, the external conditions, or something that may tempt or pull us away from our spiritual path. But in meantime, when we look within ourselves, our mind originally is pure. We have that kind of pureness. Uh, uh, we have that kind of potential. Potential. So if we look in our mind, if we recognize kind of purity is similar like those land, those lands in the Buddha land. That's one of the manifestation, one of the metaphors. So depend upon our spiritual experience. Uh, so if we recognize those lands that come from our mind, when we have that kind of purity, when we attain or when we get back to that purity of our mind, those lands exist there. But if we have impure mind, that's why it leads us to the cycle of rebirth. So let's go back to your question. Um, uh, Especially in the Mahayana traditions all kind of Mahayana sutras, the Buddha explained the beauty of all Buddha land. But again, you can see in both way. One is the Buddha explained about the kind of purity of your mind. When you have that kind of purity, everything is pure and wonderful. So the Buddha explained Buddha land in that kind of metaphor so that you can recognize your mind. That's one ways of explanation. Another way is that yes, if we attach to things so much, when we listen to the Buddha teaching, especially about the Pure Land, yes, instead of attaching to things, something that pulls us away, that brings us down to the lower realm system. We may trust the Buddha word. We may have that strong faith to decide his name for, let's say, Amitabha Buddha, so that we can be reborn over there. So that's just another experience mean for the Buddha to teach. So that's another way for us to see it too. Is that too long, Miss Thang Tư? What do you think?
Yes, Tay. I think the first one with the metaphor, I understand. The second one, maybe give me time to absorb. I can probably listen into your video again and let me have time to absorb it.
Okay, yeah. All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. All right. So since time is up, let's just finish our session today. Yeah, go ahead, Thăng Thiên, please.
Yeah. Namo Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Sakyamuni Buddha. Namo Sakyamuni Buddha.
Thank you. So see you next Saturday.